All right. Well, welcome everyone. We just wanted to have a quick team training before our Discover Arbonne at 7:30. Suzanne and I were talking and thought it'd be great for all of you to hear from new area manager Michelle Yaniskivis. She's going to share more about how her team and their growth that has happened the past 6 months. But I just wanted to share a little bit first about her before I hand her over the speaking time for the training. And Michelle and I have known each other for a really long time, and she joined me. It was 2 years this month, right, Michelle? 2 years ago you signed up officially.
Yeah. No, not quite.
Almost 2 months. Yeah. Well, we're approaching your 2-year anniversary. But when I called Michelle, I was already 2 years in, and she had been on my list for 2 years, you guys. But I was scared to call her because we hadn't talked in quite a long time. Like, we went to college together, we played basketball together at each other's weddings. Like, we were really good friends in college. Life just happened, and we lost touch and hadn't talked. And so I didn't want to call her right away when I started my business, because I was telling myself stories in my head around her being annoyed with me, thinking I was only calling because I wanted something. And I finally got up the courage to call her, and I'm so glad I did. And I'm so thankful she hadn't already been building her business or joined somebody else. But I just think her story is a really good example of why we can't assume we know what people want in their life and why you need to call. And, I did say to her, Michelle, I want to catch up. I do want to catch up and, rekindle our friendship. But the reason I'm calling is because I want to talk to you about something that's really important to me. And I just put it out there when I talked to her at first, and she secretly was in her brain hoping for Arbonne. She told me that. She goes, I was praying you'd say, please let it be Arbonne. So it's been so much fun getting our friendship back on track and seeing each other so much and getting to work with each other. It's been so fun for me to watch her grow too, because I knew from day one that she would do so well with this business. But as we all know, this business does require some, and I say some with quotations, personal growth. And Michelle has just really, really worked on herself this past year. And it's been so fun to see her just shift into the leader that she's becoming, and just watching her take hold and ownership of her business. So I'm going to let her take over, and she's really just going to share a little bit with you about going area and how her team did that, but also around focusing on building that $2,500 building block and using that as your platform for building a strong area. So Michelle, you're up.
Awesome, Shannon. I'm first going to say, as Shannon knows, she spent a lot of time with me in the past, and if I start jiggling my leg and you see the camera do this, just a little reminder would be, Shannon knows that I have quite the jiggle, and I'm kind of a little bit exhausted right now. I actually ended up showering only because I just got back from the movies for my kids, and it was exhausting. My 5-year-old did not sit very well, but thank you so much for letting me speak. I think as a teacher, we always like to kind of share our wisdom. But I first want to just say, I kind of want to have a shout out to Shannon. If you think about what this business takes, it takes a lot of courage. And it did take a lot of courage with Susanna, and knowing Susanna's leadership and the people that Susanna's recruited and everyone else. I know that I feel like you guys only ask the best. I'm not going to lie. So thank you so much for just kind of believing in me. A little bit about myself. I am a teacher by trade. I played college basketball with Shannon. And like Shannon said, I was at a point where I kind of had my dream come true. I got the perfect job. I got the perfect, what I thought was the perfect, kind of life, so to speak. Not to really realize that life was way busier than I had anticipated. And so when Shannon was asking me, she kept saying the business. And when she talked about the business, she never said Arbonne. So I remember thinking, if this is Arbonne, I'm going, because I knew what kind of stuff that she could do as a leader, but also that Arbonne as a company could do. So when I jumped in, I did feel like I jumped in with both feet. And on one part of my brain, like I was going to get to area very quickly. But in reality, I think looking back, another part of my brain, I don't think fully believed in myself. And luckily, I had a lot of people that believed in me and lifted me up throughout this journey. And the other thing that happened was I did a lot of reading. I've done a lot of growing just by taking some soul searching time that I never had before Arbonne, because I was so busy that I never took the time to really think about what I wanted and what I thought about and what and really kind of even thinking about what thoughts that were going through my brain and what thoughts about my own self were going through my brain. And that's been just a huge growth. And I think that we, as moms, especially with new kids, we do a lot for others. And I think we forget about ourselves quite a bit. We forget that, we need to take a couple minutes, whether that's, 30 to an hour at the gym, just working out, whether that's taking time to, have a glass of wine and sitting with no kids around. I think as moms, especially, we get so used to giving that we forget to give back to ourselves. And so that's one thing. If you need this right now, I'm giving you permission to take some time for yourself because you need it. And I feel like I'm a better mom just because I'm a better person and I'm a more confident person. So that's one of the things he told me. And at first I kind of was like, yeah, whatever, like personal growth and development, I'm good. She chuckles because I think she probably knew back then that I wasn't reading, but taking the time to do that was a huge kind of shift, not only in my personal life, but in my business. And it's been fun to do. When I had a conversation, so Shannon asked me to talk not only about kind of my background, but also kind of what was the huge shift in my business. And Shannon and I had a couple long conversations 6 to 9 months ago. And again, Shannon, thank you for doing that. And Shannon really doesn't talk much. She asks a lot of questions. I know you're laughing because you actually do talk a lot, but she asks a lot of questions, and that's really kind of nice for her to ask me those questions. Give me 1 second. You go. No. Sorry, I've got family around. So where was I? For 10 years or for 5 years still to do the business. And I thought about that. Actually, I don't think I really thought about it at that moment. I said, yeah, of course. And I really believed that. But what that allowed me to do was that allowed me to not kind of take off that time frame and not have to worry about getting to area at a certain point. And because I took off that time frame, I really just enjoyed my business. I was able to have grace with other people because I wasn't on a time frame. So I didn't feel like people that I was trying to launch were on a time frame either. And that kind of really took a lot of nervous energy out of me talking with people, and that really helped. So if you were like me, where you're like, oh my gosh, I want to get to district, and it's great to have goals and stuff, but at the same time, kind of give yourself grace on that. The other thing she said was, okay, so let's say you get to region tomorrow. Okay, now what? And that was really powerful for me because I remember thinking, well, I don't know, like what is now? Well, why am I doing the business? And for the right now money and all that stuff, like to get home from teaching, those are like very short-term goals. Cause I mean, I'm not teaching next year. So, I mean, we're talking not even 2 years and I kind of attained my like first goal, but she was kind of giving me that what's the bigger picture here. And it really was talking about that sort of stuff. So those are the two things that I kind of thought about, and that really changed my mindset, not feeling like I'm on a time frame and really kind of expanding my vision. So I wasn't playing for small pennies. I wasn't saying, okay, now I just want to make my car payment and make my house payment and be done. I really was like, okay, now how can I help others? And it really expanded my vision. And then the other thing that I will say is it takes time. She just kept saying, put your head down and work, and I did. You know, so we're talking 6-8 months ago. Those are the conversations I had, thought a lot about it, kept reading, but then my personal goal is just to bonus my district. And I felt like if I could bonus my district, then that would be enough growth to not only get me going and me motivated, but what that really did, and it didn't show up in August or September or October. It showed up in November and December, and that's kind of the cool thing, that if you keep and kind of have a little patience, what you do 90 days ago will show up later. And those are the kind of little tips that I have for this this training. And then the last thing I know Shannon wanted me to do, because she gave me a strict time frame, because I can talk forever, is I kind of wanted to write out, like, talking about the building blocks. And, you know, I think when I was starting, when you look at area and when you look at region, it looks really scary. I remember going back and thinking district looks scary. And so what I did was I just wrote out kind of how I not only just managed to qualify for area in November, but we really blew it out of the water. And I remember, like, 6 days before, I was looking at her at 5,000. I think my success line was at 5,000. And I'm like, Shannon, I don't get it. I feel like it's going to happen this month, but I can't see it. And she just kept saying, like, just keep going. And I did. And so I'm hoping you guys can see this. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, I'm trying to, can you guys see that? Okay, so there's 2 down here, but really what happened was, if you look at what I think is mine, that was really kind of my goal, was to bonus. So for me, I was at 5,000, and I'm kind of looking at this background, and I didn't quite I hit my bonus that month. It doesn't look like it because I had some people like one of these new districts counted for my central district, but I separated that. So this was kind of my personal, including me, my whole sales shoppers. But then I was actually launching someone new at that on November, which was a little over 1,000. So she got into qualify for district. And that one of my business builders, the goal was to promote, she had been a person on my team that kind of ended up starting and then ending up having to kind of just take a couple months off because that happened. But then coming September, October, November, she started kind of getting back into the thick of it, and noticed she not only had this 3,300, which is a little bit more than a building block, she ended up getting 2 people in for qualification. That, along with this district manager here who was doing her building block, that ended up being at $14,000. Can you guys still hear me? Okay, I just want to make sure the paper didn't get it. So if you look at that, it wasn't like I did something crazy. I had been bonusing my district. The difference really was, not only was I launching people, but I was having people that are now starting their building blocks. And that's really kind of what I relied on to kind of get me through. So not only did we qualify, but we hit 14,000 that month. And so for those of you who don't know, to hit area, you have to qualify in the first month with 10,000. And then over 2 months, it's 2,400. And the last month has to be at least 10,000. So then November comes, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And of course, I feel like I always get a little bit panicky on the first of the month when there's 0. So don't be like me. I always freak out with that, but I'm learning to cope with that. But then this is what happened my second month. There were 2 district managers that were in qualification. They didn't end up doing much that month. And again, life happened, and that's totally fine. But the nice thing was I wasn't necessarily relying on them either, because I had a bunch of people working alongside of me. So I did hit the 5,000. The one manager that promoted, it's right here, she actually was a district manager at this time. I forgot she promoted to district, so I have 2 districts alone. And between my bonus, my district manager bonus, and these 2 numbers, I hit it basically right there, 1, 2, 3. And I know she didn't, she didn't quite, you can see this one district kind of didn't do much. But I had extra, because not only was this district doing her building blocks, she was also launching some more. And so if you notice, a couple of these didn't end up kind of panning out, or they took a little time off or whatever. I mean, I think all of us in the business, that does happen. But the nice thing is if you are teaching and training at 2,500, you've got this nice base. And if you think about a pyramid, I know that's kind of a taboo word, but if you look at the pyramid, if I have one of my bases as myself and I district managers working, that's the 10,000 qualification. And so that was something that really seemed scary, and really until I did it, I felt like I was on the high dive, and then all of a sudden I was doing it. And that just kind of is how you do it. So that's one thing that when we talk about, launching people, we don't want to just launch at 1,000. We want to try to get them launched at 2,500. And really that's for two reasons. One is because you can have a stronger start if your district is at 2,500 to start with, or I'm sorry, not your district, but if your qualification period is 2,500, that makes it so much easier to finish in the next month. But also that 2,500 is really whether you're, I think, a district, an area, or a region, I think those are like a very good, at least minimum goal to hit those building blocks. So that's kind of how I did it. There was a lot of nerves along with it, so I'm not going to lie about that. There was a lot of times that I was calling Shannon going like, this is not going to happen. And she was kind of like, yes, it is. Just keep going. So it is crazy what can happen. I think in the last 3 days of my business that month of November, I think we did 6,000 or 7,000. So it was really, really crazy how much numbers can jump. So one of these months I will learn not to look at January 15th and start panicking about my numbers, because I do know that kind of jumps at the end. Other than that, that's kind of what I have for you. I know, Shannon, you wanted to kind of open it up for questions.
Yeah, that was awesome, Michelle. And that was so great. I completely forgot about that question I asked you, and I love that. I want to just explain a little bit more if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first question I asked her when I asked her, would you, if you were a district for 5 years or for 10 years, would you stick it out and stay in this business? The reason I asked her that is because she was very attached to going area at that point. She was, why have I not gone area yet? I've been doing this for a year. I should be an area manager. It's not happening. And she was, panicky about it. And I asked that question because I want to ask you all the same thing. Would you stick it out wherever you're at in this business? We all have goals. I mean, and trust me, guys, we all have these goals that we don't always hit in the right time frame, but will you stick it out? Will you stick with it as long as it takes to get where you want and to help as many people? So thank you for bringing that up. I completely forgot about us, talking about that. And then I just think seeing that visual, the reason why in my head, when I'm watching behind the scenes and looking at her numbers, I knew the goals of everyone on her team. I'm like, I know her are shooting for 2,500 a building block. Michelle, I know you're going to bonus your district. It's going to happen. It will happen. And they had the activity to back it too. It wasn't like it was just floating out of nowhere, you guys, and we were just hoping and praying for the volume. They had the activity to back that happening. But if you come into this business and you're consistent with your building block and then you teach people to do that, to me, area doesn't seem so overwhelming.
Yeah.
It really doesn't, so that's why I asked her to do that, because they really did. She has a solid business right now of people that are growing and are consistent, but they're also duplicating that. And that's what's exciting about it. So thank you, Michelle. That was really great. And Susanna, was there anything else that you wanted to point out or that you heard before we open it up? We have a minute.
No, I thought that was awesome. Michelle, good job. And I like how you just made it really simple, and really we overthink it all and we make it so much harder than it needs to be. And if we just, I think focus on doing what we're supposed to do, but duplicating that, each one person each month, even our businesses would be so much farther ahead than where they probably are.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Good job.
Awesome. All right. Well, it's 7:20, so we are going to stop only because if we have guests coming out, we want to make sure. And if you guys need to take a little break, get your do whatever you're doing. The other thing too is if you don't have guests hopping on to the DA tonight, please don't feel like you have to come on and listen to Susan and I talk. Really, you guys would rather, if you want to make calls, grow your business in that way, that's a priority over listening to us do another Discover Arbonne. Now, if you're fairly new, a new consultant, and you haven't heard a lot of DAs, and it's something you want to hear so that you can gather more practice or just learn more, be fine. But we do not expect you to stay on and listen if you don't have a guest on with you either. So, yeah, that's really all that we've got for now. But we'll be back on at 7:30, and